Right, what this video is going to do is look at the evaluation of the Golden Rule. So, advantages, first of all, of the Golden Rule. Well, it still follows the rule that Parliament is sovereign. Judges are still focused on the words in the Act. They're not trying to second guess what Parliament meant. So, in other words, judges are respecting the fact that Parliament is sovereign. They are the law-making body because they are democratically elected. They are respecting their fact that their role is simply to apply and interpret the law. The next advantage is it's limited. So again, few chances of errors because they're still focused on the words in the Act. Judges are not making law, they're just simply looking at what does the word mean. If it's got more than one meaning, then let's choose the most sensible one, or let's modify the meaning. So again, it's quite a quick rule to actually use, which has the added benefit that it makes a court case cheaper. So remember, the rule of law says that law should be accessible to all. Well, it therefore, in theory, means that a poorer person can query the meaning of a word. The next advantage is it avoids absurdity. So it should avoid absurd situations which can lead to injustice. The whole point of law is to achieve justice. So in the case of Sigsworth, had we used the literal rule, Sigsworth would have been not guilty. And they said, well, that's absurd. So by using the Golden Rule, it ensures that the right people are convicted of crimes. Why should Sigsworth receive the money when he's murdered his mother? That would be absurd and it would lead to injustice. So it's a good rule in that respect. The next thing is it does have more flexibility than the literal rule, but it's still following Parliament's intention. So you're looking at the Act of Parliament. You can modify the words, but not completely change the meaning. In terms of disadvantages, I always think it's easier to find disadvantages. It's limited in its use. So I know we said that in the advantages, but it's also a disadvantage. So you can't really do that much with it. What you are doing is you're just modifying words or looking for the most sensible meaning. So you're still not necessarily following Parliament's intentions. It's not a popular choice with judges. So academics have called it a feeble parachute, which you definitely don't want a feeble parachute. So I think their kind of point is that it's just really limited. It's very old-fashioned. It doesn't really do very much, so it's rarely used. It's also difficult to decide when to use it. So we've said you can use it when the literal rule leads to absurdity. It's like, well, what is meant by absurdity? Different judges have different opinions. It's a value judgment as to when the literal rule causes absurdity. So that's a problem in itself. The other issue is they can only modify words. Well, what is meant by modify? In Sigsworth, I think they changed the words, but modifying the words, you might have a very liberal interpretation of what modify means, and at what point does modify become changing the words? So judges could go too far and actually change the meaning of words, which then is not what they're supposed to be doing because they're only supposed to be interpreting and applying the law. It is also difficult to predict when this rule is going to be used, and do they decide the end result first and then decide which rule to use? That is, a potential issue there. So lots of points to think about with the Golden Rule.